Now, a lot of conservative commentators have given their take on this horrific event in the last week, but I don't think any of them have really, maybe they've understood it, but they haven't really gotten into how multifaceted this issue is and this incident is. Many have hopped onto the fact that the shooter was trans or even anti-Christian. And while I firmly believe that those are both true, we must analyze that this instance with each facet individually and consider each facet individually before putting them all together, because this shooting is not just a trans issue. It's not just an anti-Christian issue or just a mental health issue or a gun issue. So let's segment this up and break it down into three primary categories. The categories I'm going to talk about here today is the mental health issue of gender dysphoria. Then I'm going to talk about Christian sentiment and how Christians are treated in society today. And then I'm going to discuss mass shootings as a whole. But let's start off with the mental illness that is gender dysphoria. So the shooter in Nashville was identified. It was identified as transgender, a person that pretends to be the gender that they are not. Many commentators have come after the trans community, and again, this is conservative commentators have come after the trans community in ways that frame these people as if they're all school shooters or they're all that intensely mentally ill. And this is not true. I want to be clear. In fact, according to the Associated Press, there are only 4 examples over the past 5 years in which a shooter identified as trans or non-binary. The November killing, these are listed as the November killing of 5 at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs, a 2019 shooting at a Denver area school by 2 shooters. One of them was a trans man. An 2018 shooting in a Maryland warehouse that left 4 dead, including the shooter, and then this shooting in Monday at Nashville. And something to talk about, but it is not necessarily reflective of all school shootings. And there have been 3,500 mass shootings since the beginning of 2016, also according to the Associated Press. And a mass shooting is defined, everybody, as a murder of 4 or more people in a given area. I know mass shooting can make it sound like it's a lot more, but it's not necessarily. But anyways, I digress. So it's for us to allude that there's a significant rise in trans shooters is not really a fact-based argument. That's me calling out some conservative commentators. I want to be clear. We can't be coming out and saying that, oh my gosh, trans people are going to shoot up everywhere. If we wanted to start playing the identity game like that, then people like me who are straight white guys, young straight white guys, would be in serious trouble because that's who actually commits a significant amount of these mass shootings because of their mental illness. And that's what I want to get into a little bit more. But I also want to be clear, however, that this is not excusing the actions of the alphabet mafia. My hope from this incident, what I hoped would happen, is that we can have an honest conversation about how society treats people and treats the mental health issue that is transgenderism. Because up until now, our society has been kind of like this clip I'm about to play. Everybody, I want to play this clip. This is from Family Guy. It's only about 8 seconds long, but this is how I feel like transgenderism is treated in our society. Here's this clip.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
Do whatever you want all the time. That's what's said in this Family Guy clip. Do whatever you want. And it's a joke that talk about transgenderism is a joke. Do everything you want all the time. But for some reason, a significant portion of society actually treats the rainbow community as if they can genuinely do no wrong. And this is not true. Every single human being is capable of doing something wrong. And as I said, I had hoped that the shooting would allow for us to finally have that conversation. But instead, the left doubled down. They instead blamed the shooting on society's inability to accept trans people. And then they also blamed the guns themselves. No, in fact, all school shootings, including this one, are an issue of mental health. And gender dysphoria is a mental illness. But I want to be clear, all school shootings, all mass shootings are an issue of mental health. No sane person has ever thought that dealing with an issue involves mass murder of innocent people. No sane person has ever felt that in a civilized society. And gender dysphoria is a mental illness. It is a form of psychosis. If you even want to, I'm going to get into a little bit about how gender dysphoria has been classified. But even if you want to go by the current classification of gender dysphoria as if it's not a mental illness, then let's call it psychosis, which is a mental illness. Psychosis is an instance in which a person believes something that is not. So a man cannot be a woman and a woman cannot be a man. But if you believe that to be true, you suffer from psychosis. Want to know how I know this to be true? So first, if you're sane, and if for your sanity and if for your ability to be cordial in public relies on me playing along with this idea that you're a woman when you actually are a man, then you're probably not mentally stable. If I have to go along with, because that's what happens, that's what they claim, is that people aren't affirming these gender ideas. They claim that I have to go along with their delusion for them to feel comfortable. If that is the way that your identity works, you probably are not mentally okay. You probably have something that you need to get checked out. Secondly, according to a Swedish study, the transgender suicide rate is about 40%, and it doesn't get better post-op. According to the Swedish study, the suicide rate among trans people is 40%, and it does not get better post-operation. And that suicide rate is significantly higher than that of Jewish people in concentration camps and American slaves. It's just the facts. I know it doesn't sound pretty. It's not happy, but it's the facts. Along with that, according to a Harvard School of Public Health, transgender youth are more at risk for mental illness, including depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and attempts of self-harm than their non-transgender peers. So they are more likely to do it than anybody else. How is this not considered a mental health issue? The pièce de résistance to all of this is that in 2012, so this is 11 years ago, the American Psychiatric Association changed the classification of gender dysphoria to no longer be a mental illness. Why? Why? That would be my first question, everybody. Why did the American Psychiatric Association decide to do this? Well, I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with any kind of psychological study, has nothing to do with any kind of talk of education or like what's actually going on in somebody's head. No, in an interview with The Advocate, American Psychiatric Association member Jack Drescher explained this revision, saying that, quote, all psychiatric diagnoses occur within a cultural context. We know there is a whole community of people out there who are not seeking medical attention and live between the two binary categories. So he doesn't cite any kind of, this is like the research we did, this is how it works. No, it was society has changed. So there you have it. Nothing has changed besides society. The human mind hasn't changed. Science hasn't changed. No, the community has changed. And it happened right under our noses. A lot of us didn't even realize that this change happened in 2012 because it wasn't something that we thought in 2012 could be something that would be normalized. What started as, quote, let's help people has turned into destroying the sanctity of gender and hurting our children. Transgenderism is a mental illness, like anxiety, depression, or suicidal ideation. It needs to be treated, not affirmed. And it needs to be treated with compassion, just like we've done with those other mental illnesses. Yes, we need to kind of remove some of a stigma on these things. We need to remove the idea. We need to remove that it's necessarily you're an awful person if you're trans. That's not true. These things are wrong. You're not awful if you have anxiety. You're not awful if you have depression. You're not awful if you've contemplated suicide. I want everybody to get help, especially if you're suffering from something like gender dysphoria. We need people to get help. But we cannot be telling people that if you want to turn into a woman, then you can become a woman if you were born a man. That is not how the world works.